Thank you. I'm going to take us perhaps a little bit slower because I'm taking us into health. And health is quite conservative despite all the wonderful innovations that we've heard about that we know are coming in the pipeline. Furthermore, I'm taking us into hearing aids, which has to be one of the most conservative areas. I'm working in a 100-year-old industry that's 20% penetrated. I think the industry's been doing something wrong. I hope I'm doing something right. I suppose finally I'm a woman in technology, so that's my token representation here on that. And furthermore, we have products and services, which is also perhaps a bit unfashionable, but the business I'm going to tell you about is right at the forefront of disruption and innovation in health. The picture you see in front of you is my dad. My father lost his hearing when he was in his early 20s. I became aware of it as I was a child growing up. Initially, I was only aware of it because I thought my dad was even more embarrassing than other people's dads, heading to the top of the embarrassing dad league table, as he would say just the wrong line at the end of a joke, or wouldn't get a joke, or would come in with something just a bit inappropriate. I also noticed my parents didn't go out very much. It was hard for him to socialise. And by the time he was in what should have been mid-career, and by then he was a senior professional in British Rail in England and should have had a sort of meteoric rise upwards, but it all got too hard. So he pulled back from work entirely and took up a role running a boat chartering business on the River Dart, which is where he is in that picture, and where I think he got quite a lot of happiness but was not able to fulfill his career potential. I wanted to do something different. Hearing aids didn't seem to work very well, and they were quite difficult to get hold of. I didn't really know how I was going to do it. I just knew I wanted to make a difference in this field where people were so disadvantaged if they couldn't hear properly. And there are 360 million people around the world who have quite serious hearing losses. So I decided I needed to do something about it. I had no idea how. I did not have the vision of Arthur C. Clarke. We hadn't got an internet. Computers were certainly not the size of tiny DSP chips today. I had no idea how I was going to do it, so I'd do what any other girl would do in that circumstance. I went to university and studied quantum physics. So not the only person with quantum physics in the background, and I would say now that that is perhaps one of the most creative sciences to go into because there are no borders. It's a very hazy border between quantum physics and metaphysics. You've got huge creative freedom. So perhaps I was a disruptor from the time of my degree. Today where I am is I'm running probably Australia's leading telehealth business, certainly the most advanced teleaudiology hearing aid company in the world, and also the world's perhaps smallest but certainly the most leading hearing aid company in the world, here from Melbourne. What I've done, or what we've done in our company, is to disrupt the system entirely by saying, okay, people don't get hearing aids because they're expensive, they're difficult to get to, people don't even recognise they have hearing difficulties, they just assume the world is mumbling or start booming in their board meetings. I'm sure you don't know any boomers, but... we wanted to remove the barriers. So what I have to show you here, in my pocket, because I learned in the first session this morning that everything had to go in my pocket, is the audiologist. I'm an audiologist, I've been replaced by this. So our company makes it very, very easy for people to get hearing aids, do their hearing testing online, get the hearing aids delivered to them in their home over the web, self-fit them, and have customised, that is to say, service from our team of people in Melbourne if they want it, which most people don't. Because what we've done is, as Leonardo said, we've made it very easy. So we've taken the mystery out of hearing aids and made it easy. Hearing loss affects a lot of people. There'll be 4 million people in Australia today with hearing difficulties, and out of that, most people don't do anything about their hearing loss. For those of you who might hit this target demographic, 2 out of 3 people between 60 and 70 have hearing difficulties. You might never have had it measured, you might not be accepting I have a hearing loss, you're not classically deaf, but you're not hearing that well either. By 2050, hearing loss is projected to affect 1 in 4 of the total population. Why does this matter? It affects lots of things in our lives, and it affects how the country spends its money. How do I go backwards? This, for me, is the picture of deafness. I co-produced a play this year showing that quantum physicists can actually do quite versatile things. And the play was a story of this young woman telling how she had lost her hearing through her childhood. It's done as an allegory. And here, she's wet, she's drowning. She tells this allegory, and the play is acted by one woman who is profoundly deaf using a cochlear implant, and she plays 6 characters. But she tells of the utter despair that took over her life before she was able to get the cochlear implant and hear again. Even in its minor form, hearing loss causes frustration, grumpiness. I just had the privilege to interview Philip Adams, who I'm happy to say uses our hearing aids, and he said, well, of course we're grumpy if we have hearing loss, in the way that he so beautifully can say it. It leads to depression. It's a major cause of depression. It leads to social isolation. It leads to feelings of paranoia. It leads to people not being able to fulfill their career, like my father. More scarily, we know that untreated hearing loss, that is if you don't get hearing aids, doubles your chance of getting dementia. So anyone who hadn't heard that one before, just, hold that in mind. It costs a lot to remediate hearing loss if it's left a long time. The longer you leave putting off hearing aids, the harder it is to get good with them and to really get back to normal form. That's important because health is expensive. And I want to just talk a minute to this slide, and I want to thank my colleague Dr Sarah Dodds from CSIRO for allowing me to use this slide. And in this slide you see on the vertical axis the percent of revenue that Australia derives from its taxes, and I'll draw your attention then to the, firstly the orange dotted line, which shows how much the states are spending on health costs and how much we're going to be spending in, say, 2050. The red line is where we run out of money. That's 100%. This doesn't count the money you spend on top with your private contributions. This is the money that the states spend on health. If you look at all government costs, the picture is a little bit better. It means we're only spending half our revenue on health. And you might want to have some of your taxes go on to other things as well as health. It's not a very even proportion. So what we need to do is to do things better, but cheaper. This is my business in a slide. Somebody who wants hearing aids from us, and I'm going to stress unashamedly, I'm absolutely confident they are the best hearing aids in the world. The technology has been developed in the last few years. The core technologies in most hearing aids was developed in 1986 and has been tweaked ever since. But you take a hearing test at home. It has to be at comfortable levels, not hush-hush levels taken in a soundproof padded room, just at comfortable levels. And the chart you get back tells you what sounds of speech you can hear well and what sounds of speech you can't hear well. Better than that, we have those results come to us through, of course, the world that's being eaten up by software over the internet. We have the results, and we can use those as the initial settings in the hearing aids which go out to our customers. Then if they want to, they can customize them further. They can customize them with this little gadget which Bluetooth connects to their smartphone or tablet or computer. And they can program them and fine-tune them themselves there in their home. This is the only hearing aid in the world that can be fine-tuned and properly set up completely with a smartphone. And it's Australian. For people who want help, people who are used to having an audiologist and have lack of confidence, we have a team in Melbourne who can, of course, take over their computer and do it for them. The audiologist comes to their living room. So they can do everything from home. They don't have to go out of the house. They can have expert care if they want. They have choices. So for some of our clients, we hear nothing from them. And some of them, we hear an awful lot. I think they're lonely. And something people forget in telehealth is that you are incredibly accessible. You are a phone call away. You're an email away. You're not 300 miles drive away. We've got customers who are yachtsmen. We've got customers on the rigs. We've got customers in the Northern Territory. And it's just as though we were there in their room with them, or on the boat. This is where medicine is going. I think our company is profitable. I should say, because it's health, we are sustainable. We are possibly one of the few sustainable health businesses there are in this innovative space. And it's very important to think of things in a slightly different way with health, because health is part of our social fabric. Most, or many countries, consider it a responsibility to pay something towards health. Therefore, we are not free just to innovate and do anything. We are interacting with third-party payers, with government funding. It's also been an extremely patriarchal system. And I don't know whether I blame or whether I look to the craggy gentleman on the top right of the slide, which is Hippocrates, who actually lived in the 5th century BC. He governances medicine today. Personally, I think we're time for a little bit of a change. We're getting this huge shift to the consumer. The patient is becoming a consumer. The medical profession is not altogether keen about this, so you'll hear questions and answers like, well, if I come in and say I've walked 10K, and they'll believe me, but if I come in and say, here's my Fitbit, it says I've walked 10K, the doctor will say it's not been evidenced yet. So the consumer is creating a completely different pattern in health. Patients for participation in medicine, that's a lot to say, patients for participation in medicine is becoming a huge movement in the US. One of my heroes is someone called Dave Bronkart, e-patient Dave, who was a driving force behind this. And what patients have found is that if there are 1 billion users on Facebook, you can connect with all these people. You can go on to My Patients Like Me. There wouldn't be a clinical trial on a medical device that has that kind of connectivity. It's a completely different way of looking at things. But the medical profession is conservative and doesn't know how to deal with it. So it's saying, oh, we can't do that, it hasn't been evidenced. I put this graphic on here, the patient has escaped. We have smartphones. There are more smartphones in the world than toothbrushes. The patients can access all sorts of medical data that they are generating. Not only do we have the statement, people own their own data, they're generating their own data. See, I've technically run out of time. I have one more slide, that's all. I also want to show the iPhone there has, this is very relevant to me, an ear attachment. You can look down the ear, you can beam the picture to an expert, or you can look down it and say, oh, I think that looks a bit red, maybe we'll give you an aspirin. But we can do almost all medical tests with a smartphone today. You can get lab on a chip to go onto a smartphone. You drop a drop of blood on and up comes your result and beam it off to someone. It's not commercially available yet, but it's technically possible. Everything is changing in health, and it's about choices for the client. And what I'm going to leave you with is the thought is we as consumers and as entrepreneurs and innovators actually have to take doctors and the medical profession and audiologists on the journey with us. I'm not greatly loved by most audiologists, it's fair to say, because they see that I'm replacing them with a gadget and the internet. And I think we can do it better in that circumstance because we can give anyone who does connect with us, connects to a team of 25 world-leading experts. Isn't that better than going to the hearing aid shop on the corner? This is my dad again to finish. If my dad had had access to technology like we have and the ability to tune up his hearing aids and set his hearing aids in his home, he might have worked for many more years. Even if he had retired early, he would have been able to hear the sounds on the river and enjoy them better. We have to change health. We have to do it better. We have to do it cheaper. And we have to make sure that we don't lose our humanity in helping people as we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.